Hey guys, Andy here. I've got a friend that's actually living outside here in Kentucky in a tent with some tarps over top, and he's not in a very secure place, and I've talked to him about possibly moving to my first campsite, which right now he's only less than 5 minutes from work. But if he moved to my number one campsite in the woods by my work, he would be less than 10 minutes from work, a little longer, but he would be a lot more secure, a lot more hidden. He originally was staying here in an apartment, one of the apartments, which are small, almost about half the size of this cabin. But something happened, I don't know what exactly, but he got kicked out of here. Or I would invite him to stay here at my cabin since I've got a second bed that I don't use. But since he got kicked out of here, I guarantee you that they would not allow him to stay in my cabin and help share the rent or whatever. So he's staying in a tent, and I tried to talk to him to move to my other camp, and at first he denied. Well, Christmas weekend, I went and talked to him, and it pointed out to him the fact that, I mean, he's very visible by police, that, you know, he could get caught camping out where he's at, and that's him texting me right now because I'm texting him about this idea. I want to go to my first camp and help build a shelter to where he can be warm, guaranteed warm and dry. He's already bought some big tarps that he's put over his tent because of the rain. And the thing about it is at my work, I can get steel 5-gallon buckets for free. They throw away 30 of them a day probably between the 3 shifts. 8 to 10 per shift, I would say. Because the paint, the automotive paint, comes in the 5-gallon steel buckets, and the catalyst, which cures the paint, those also come in the 5-gallon buckets. Granted, they use less catalyst than paint, but what my idea is, which I could only find spools of thread to explain my idea, what I want to do is I want to take a bucket and cut a hole in here in this end for him to feed firewood in, and then cut a hole up here in the top, and then take another bucket and put it on top of that with a hole, so the heat from the fire feeds up through into the second bucket. And then I'm going to cut a hole in the top of that bucket and put a third one on top, so the heat transfers up into the third bucket, then back, and then up, and then I'll buy the stovepipe to make like a 3-chamber bucket. So the third one, which I don't have a third spool of thread, the third one down here at the or first one I should say down here at the bottom, you feed the wood in the end, the fire burns, goes up into the second bucket, comes over here, goes up into the third bucket, goes back up over here, and then goes out the chimney, which would provide a lot of heat in a shelter. And I'm trying to text him right now to talk to him about going and building a shelter this weekend. It wouldn't take a lot since he's already bought 2 tarps, and even though he, you know, is in a tent, he could put the tent inside the shelter, which would, you know, be another layer of insulation, another layer in case the rain got through. But I would much rather see him in something more of a structure like that than what he's in right now, with a tarp a tent with 2 tarps over top. And he would have an internal heat source instead of an external heat source if and when he decides to start a fire, which it makes him even more visible where he's at. My first campsite, the one in the woods by my work, is a lot deeper into the woods, but not much more of a walk. Maybe add 5 minutes to his walk. So I'm trying to talk to him, and I just thought of the idea with the buckets just a few minutes ago, and I could cut them out with a jigsaw and weld them up at work in just a few minutes on my lunch. I can get the buckets for free. So yeah, it's just kind of an idea I want to, get out there, get across to him, because, love that neighbor. I would gladly bring him into my home if I could. But if I brought him into my home, since he's already been kicked out of here, I'd probably be kicked out too. So this is kind of a short-term idea to help him out, to help him stay warm, considering it's winter. I mean, thank God it's been decent weather. I mean, 50 degrees today. But it's bound to get worse. This is now January and into February. It's bound to get worse before March and April, before it starts to warm up again. And that would make him more secure, keep him warm, until maybe we can get an apartment together, to where, we could split the rent and get him off the streets, get him out of that tent. So if you guys got any suggestions on, a different idea on a 5-gallon bucket stove, a shelter, whatever, hit me up in the comments. I mean, I really want to help David, and this is the best I can come up with. Like I said, just 10 minutes ago, I thought about this idea with the buckets to make a stove, and with the 3 chambers where you got the fire in the bottom one, it goes up into the second, goes up into the third, and then out the chimney. That heats up those 3 buckets, which provides a lot more heat, or a lot more absorption of the heat into the shelter. And then the shelter's still there for camping later on, once we get an apartment together, or he gets an apartment by himself and I get an apartment by myself, whichever, which would make it a lot easier on me if we were both saving collectively to move into a place, because I'm paying, $250 a week here, $13,000 a year, and I've been here almost I've probably been here 2 years, and that's a lot of money. And if we were saving collectively, it would help me save the money faster to get out of here, and help him save the money faster to get out of the situation that he's in. Because, I just bought my Jeep. I paid $2,000 cash down on my Jeep, and then I spent another $800 putting, 5 brand new tires on it, because it's got a full-size spare, and I want that full-size spare so where I can change them out, and that just happened last week. I had a flat tire, so yeah. It's just, if you've got any ideas to help me out with the buckets, the idea to help make a warm shelter, keep him, warm. That's the whole point, to keep him warm. So if you guys got any ideas, leave them in the comments. They'll be greatly appreciated. And now I'm gonna get back to his comments, because I'm hoping to get him to call me on the phone before I go to bed. Thanks for watching.